We are entering the final weeks of TFT Set 10, Remix Rumble. The two key features of the set were 1, an absolutely killer soundtrack. And 2, the unique set mechanic, headliners. These special shop offers would give you a 2-star copy of a given unit, give that unit some extra stats, and make one of their trait slots count twice. This had an extremely interesting effect on the game, which took me quite a while for me to wrap my head around. Over 300 games later, I've come out the other side with the conclusion that, well, I don't really like it. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun this set. The TFT team over at Riot did an amazing job on the soundtrack, the units, trait, balance, all of that. However, at the same time, I found myself solving puzzles that I didn't originally sign up for. To be more specific, let me break down the 3 pitfalls I see with the headliner system. Illusion of flexibility. The goal of the headliner mechanic was to encourage flexible play, jumping between headliners, playing a new one each stage, consistently evolving your team. This was the playstyle that was encouraged, and it did occur to some extent. What sets apart high-level players is their ability to find the best board and headliner for any given situation. I see it as an interesting minigame you have to play on the side of the main game, which is putting together a proper team composition. At a certain point, you need to roll down your gold and put together a real team. Of course, everyone eventually has a high roll game where they can coast to a fast 9 and roll down from there, but we're not all Setsuko. A majority of the time as a player, you are forced to either commit to a reroll composition or a level 8 roll down. This is where the headliner mechanic can introduce difficulties. When committing to a reroll comp, they generally require pairing your primary carry with a very particular set of units to maximize trait value. Given that you want your primary carry to be your headliner for the extra stats, you'll end up getting +1 to one of their traits. Whenever the game offers you a binary choice like this, there's almost always a better option. Emo Annie is strictly better than Spellweaver Annie. Jazz Bard is strictly better than Dazzler Bard. Punk Jinx is strictly better than Rapid Fire Jinx. The list goes on. Once the meta got solved, the extra trait stopped feeling like a bonus, but more like a necessity and an extra layer of complication on top of the reroll game. I'm already trying to gather units and perfect items, but now I have to worry about what version of my unit I get. This can lead to frustrating moments where you have 6 Yone copies and are low on gold, but then roll into a Heartsteel Yone. The cap of your comp gets lowered through no fault of your own. On the other hand, when pushing levels throughout the game to do a stage 4 level 8 roll down, the exact opposite problem occurs. At this stage in the game, the extra trait doesn't really matter. Heartsteel Ezreal and Big Shot Ezreal are virtually the same. You're gonna click on both because of the other key part of headliners. They're 2-starred. On a typical level 8 roll down, you can reasonably expect to see at least 1 copy of the different 4-cost units you want to play, and if you're lucky, 2-star one of them. The addition of an immediate 2-star unit vastly increases the difference in power levels of boards that did and didn't hit their headliner. Strong meta compositions revolve around 4-cost duo carries that increase the odds of hitting one of them as a headliner. But if you miss those, then you need to start considering what's good enough for your board. Of course, the best players in the world are the best because they're successfully able to do this consistently. Personally though, I don't find it to be that satisfying. Wider trait tree. One side effect of the +1 trait on headliners is the fact that it caused the trait web to be very wide. By that I mean there's a way to link almost any 2 units together with a third one. This does aid in achieving the flexible play goal of the mechanic, but issues arise when you realize that some units are more flexible than others. That's right, I'm looking at you superfans. The traits these units have are so good they fit quite literally into any comp. Place Lilia, Kennen, Echo, and Nico on your board, and you've just activated Superfan, Sentinel, Guardian, and True Damage, while also being 1 away from KDA. Add Evelynn for Crowd Divers, Kai'Sa for Big Shots, Akali for Executioners, Gnar and Mordekaiser for Pentakill, the list goes on. These units are so flexible that it almost becomes trivial. Collect Superfans and click on a carry headliner. A similar thing occurs with the Edgelord package. With Kayle, Mordekaiser, and Viego on your board, you've activated Pentakill while being 1 away from Edgelord and Sentinel. Add Yasuo or Yone plus Echo, or Riven plus Garen, and the comp is pretty much done. When you want to cap your board, it doesn't matter what you're playing. Just throw some jazz units on your board for an instant power spike to everything. All the comps start to feel a bit samey, because the most widely usable units appear everywhere, and the game almost actively discourages you from going vertical with any trait. For most traits, the stat boost of first activating it is all that's needed. After that, there's diminishing returns. If you're running the Superfan package, rarely are you pushing for 4 Sentinels or 4 Guardians. The more traits active is better than stacking 1. Some traits do encourage going vertical, such as Disco, but that feels more like a requirement than something you can try and reach for. A full Disco board with Disco Blitzcrank or Disco Twisted Fate gets you to 6 out of 6, and there's nothing beyond that. What if I get an emblem and want even more Disco? That's not an option. And instead, you'll likely end up dropping down to 5 out of 6 Disco as you drop 1 cost units to cap your board. Traits like True Damage do have a breakpoint that you can reach for, but make it completely inaccessible. Playing Reroll Senna, if you hit Rapid Fire Senna, you end up playing all the True Damage units. And if you hit True Damage Senna, you get to drop the Yasuo for another Rapid Fire unit, and that's about it. You'll run Superfan plus 6 True Damage to cap your board, but will never go further unless you manage to get True Damage Senna and 2 True Damage emblems. I understand these breakpoints are intentionally out of reach, so that when you do hit them, it's virtually an instant win, but I don't know if I like so many traits being like that. I did really enjoy the risk-reward behind some of the previous vertical traits, like Set 9 Sorcerers. The max breakpoint was 8, and there were 7 Sorcerer units. Given that, with 1 emblem, you could put together a Glass Cannon 8 Sorcerer team, or drop down to 6 with a better unit in for one of your weaker Sorcerers. There was an interesting decision to be made there, based on your current game state, but the trait web in Set 10 doesn't offer the same thing. Hidden rules. And now here's where we get into the biggest problem with headliners: the hidden rules. TFT has many hidden rules at play, things that aren't told to the player but have an effect on the game, and generally they're good. If you don't know, there is bad luck protection in the shops you see. If you go on a long streak of shops that don't feature a particular unit, that unit is guaranteed to appear in a future shop. The exact details about how it's triggered aren't known by the players. It's truly a hidden rule. Until a duck makes a video on it, of course. Thankfully, he has made a video on the hidden rules behind headliners. I encourage you to go watch that full video for all the details, but it boils down to the following rules. You won't see the same headliner unit twice in a short period of shops, you won't see the same trait +1 in a short period of shops, and you won't see the same trait +1 on the same unit twice in a row. This was the holy grail of information about headliner traits. If you want 8-bit Riven but see Edgelord Riven, you know the next time you see her, she's guaranteed to be 8-bit. If you see a Country Urgot, you know that you won't be seeing Country Samira anytime soon. This gave people in the know a significant advantage over those who didn't know. Then it was learned that buying and selling a headliner could affect these rules, leading to a list of units you had to buy and sell on your rolldown to tailor your desired headliner offering. And then something got bugged in the code and you had to buy and sell even more units, and then some of the rules stopped working and you could actually see the same trait twice in a row, and then bugs got fixed, and then things got changed again, and it was just so much to keep track of. If you know the current hidden rules, you have a distinct competitive advantage over those who don't, and that's really unfortunate. Having bad luck protection is in theory a great thing to have, but when players are able to reverse engineer it and use it to their advantage, it tilts the playing field in a bad way. On the other hand, there was some element of good luck protection in the shops as well. During PvE, many players would collect 6 copies of a unit, sell their current headliner, and roll for the last copy of their unit as a headliner for an instant 3-star. This was a very effective strategy to get 3-star 4 and 5 costs. So Riot came at it from 2 angles. First, they lowered the pool size. There were simply less units available in the pool, and made it easier for opponents to hold your units and block you. On top of that, they also combated the strategy by introducing further hidden rules. If more than half of the units were out of the pool, you couldn't see it as a headliner offered. This required tedious counting of yours and other people's units, while also having to consider what they might have in their shop when committing to rerolling for something. This stopped the easy 3-star strategy, but could also grief players just rolling for their headliner in a contested line. Eventually, that got changed where it only counted how many units you personally had to determine if the headliner could show up, but this is still a hidden rule. If you're not religiously reading every patch note, these things could change under your feet and aren't made obvious. When I was recording this video, Mortdog and Frodan did announce a new site, TFT Hub, that is intended to address some of this. Here would be a central location for everyone who hasn't been able to stay fully up to date to go and get the latest information. But now you have to check TFT Hub for the latest info, and I have to explain to my girlfriend why this random hub site is taking up half of my browser history. That all being said, Set 10 has been an extremely fun time, and again the soundtrack was absolutely fantastic. The set mechanic though, not my favorite. We just came out of Set 9, which had arguably the best new mechanic, portals, which have been confirmed to be evergreen, sticking around in Set 10, Set 11, and all sets in the near future. However, it also had arguably the worst mechanic, legends, which were difficult to balance and led to some degenerate playstyles. Those have confirmed to not be making an appearance again anytime soon. They can't all be winners, and headliners fall somewhere between those two for me. What do you think? Did you enjoy the challenge of finding the right traits and headliners on your rolldowns? Or are you ready to take a step back into some more vanilla TFT? Let me know in the comments down below. Either way, I know that I'm very excited to see what Mortdog & Co. have cooked up for the recently announced Set 11, Inkborn Fables. See y'all then.